don't know if it's just my algorithm, but I've been hearing lately that books these days are terrible. Like we're living in real like abyss of literary quality. And I mean, obviously, like I have a vested interest in this as someone who's like actively writing a book and who also reads books and enjoys books. But I think like first of all, like I need to get like a question out of the way, which is like, why do people read? I mean, or more like, well, I'll give my answer. I'll give my answer, which is why I read. And I think this answer starts with a confession, which is that when I started reading kind of in earnest around like the age of 14, I was not reading because I felt great joy in the act of reading. I was reading because like I was a very high achiever and I thought reading would make me better and smarter. And so like I made a vow to myself that I would only read classics from that point on. And I actually did for like a good several years, like only read classics. But something happened very interestingly once I started this process of reading classics, which was that I actually started to really enjoy it. Like I was just reading along and I'm like, oh, wait, like actually I kind of like how this feels. You know, I liked being swept along in the narrative. I liked understanding the social and historical contexts that these writers were writing from, that it just gave me a better understanding of humanity. It was an emotional experience. And I think that's why, when asked, why do I read? I mean, that's why I read, for the emotional experience. I read because it makes me feel something. And when I hear that books these days are bad, I see two sides to this conversation, really. There's kind of like the fun book side of the conversation, and then there's the serious book side of the conversation. Now, on the fun book side of the conversation, the idea goes that the fun books, like the romantasy or romance or whatever, commercial fiction, are just badly written, badly edited. Like, they're not even worth the paper they're printed on. Like, they're terrible. Like, why do people waste money on them? And then people come back and say, well, I read these books because, like, I like to read for fun, and these books are fun, and they make me happy. And I'm like, yeah, sure, fair. But then people are like, well, this is like the death of intellectualism, and we'll never have a well-informed society if people like reading this crap. And I mean, honestly, like, I have no skin in this game. Like, I don't really read in that genre. I can't comment on it. I think the only thing I could say is, like, broadly speaking, I think people should just read what they enjoy reading. Like, if they're getting, like, the pleasure, the emotion out of these fun but potentially badly written books, I'm like, whatever. It's okay. I don't know, though. I don't have a real take on this debate. However, I do have a take on the serious book side of the debate, which is what I'm really talking about today. On the serious book side of the debate, there's this idea that literary fiction books, like kind of the books that are dealing with, more complex themes, a bit of like social criticism, that these books are not necessarily badly written. Generally, that's not the complaint. Like usually there's a bit of consensus that the language is fine. It's more that they are depressing, boring, maybe a little bit sanctimonious. Like the writers are trying to teach people a lesson and impose their worldview on the reader. And you know what? When I hear these criticisms, I kind of largely agree, or at least I see where the critics are coming from. Because indeed, like as someone who started off in the classics, but then moved into reading mostly literary fiction, I feel it too. And I think it's not even so much that I find the books overly depressing. Like I can love a depressing book from time to time. It's more just that like I think they're boring. Like I have had so many times when I picked up like a really popular, critically acclaimed literary fiction book, and I'm just like, what was the point of that? Like, there was no feeling, no emotion. I don't feel like I learned anything. I don't even know what I'm supposed to get out of this. And I would boil my complaints down to two main categories. Complaint one is that the characters are often just a bit flat. like they don't have a lot really going on in their lives. Mostly this may be where the allegation that these books are depressing comes from. And like they don't generally tend to grow as people through the course of the narrative, which I also thought was kind of like the point of telling stories, is that you're showing change in people's lives. You're showing people's progression from one state of being to another. But I don't know, apparently not. Like really a lot of the time the characters are just quite static. You know, they're oftentimes quite focused on like their own social grievances or maybe their own traumas, or they are led through traumatic experiences by the author and nothing really much happens. And you kind of just read it and you're like, why am I invested in this person then? And you kind of come to the conclusion that you're not invested in this person. And then my second sort of related critique is that even though these books are ostensibly concerned with society and commentating on society, they're kind of strangely without context in the way that the settings are described and the way the characters' experiences are described. I mean, yes, like they happen in a particular place, but there's really like not a lot of discussion given to, I don't know, the historical moment in which the book takes place. It's more like there's this very narrow focus on individual grievance, maybe on very like minute domestic and relationship concerns, with the whole world that the characters occupy apparently just left out, even though these are books that like kind of have a lot of like political views kind of woven through, but there's not a lot of commentary on like how those political views took shape, like what made the characters believe the things they believe, like how do their views change through their interactions with other people, what happens through the people they meet. None of this happens really. Those are the main categories of my criticisms. Now, there is also one little tangent in the area of criticism of literary fiction that I need to go down just briefly, which is the criticism that these books are too woke, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like, I think it's okay for characters to have leftist political views, and I think it's okay for characters to belong to a marginalized group and for that marginalized identity to be an important part of their story as a character. Like, I think that's fine. I think we need voices in literature that represent a diversity of experiences and worldviews. Now, I think maybe where this criticism comes from, though, is to do with like the flatness of the characters, like the boiling down of characters sometimes to maybe one identity characteristic, and the feeling perhaps that you are supposed to just like have sympathy for this character expressing this identity characteristic. The stories are simply like too simplistic. Like the characters that have these diverse experiences are just too flat. They don't learn and grow or question anything through the course of the story. And so it does just kind of seem like maybe the writer is preaching to their audience, just trying to say like, look at this bad thing that happens in society. Like, don't you think this is bad? And without like actually like kind of taking a more neutral questioning stance of like, okay, I'm putting this character with these characteristics in this situation, and they're going to do stuff based on a whole range of their past experiences. And maybe those things will also be bad things. Like, it's okay for characters to do bad things, and maybe they'll learn and grow through the process of like being in these different situations, but that doesn't often happen really. It kind of is like a little bit more just like, ooh, look at the oppression. I think maybe the issue that we're actually running into here is there's not enough of a diversity of socioeconomic experiences being represented in contemporary literary fiction. And I think that might in fact be the problem that people are pointing to when they're saying, oh, these books are too woke. Oh, they're just focused on identity issues. And I think that maybe it is coming from writers who like haven't had a lot of like experience of worlds beyond certain elite spaces. But let's get into it. Everyone knows, obviously, that like to be a writer is a really tough way to make money. Like, it doesn't pay well. You have to do a lot of labor for free. You have to usually write a whole entire book, like a whole entire, 300 some page novel, and then take it to a publisher just in the hope that they might publish it. You have no idea. That's like where I'm at right now, where I've spent like over a year of my life, like writing a novel that may or may not ever get published, like just, funding myself through the process, basically. Like, to become a writer is an expensive proposition. And so perhaps it's no surprise that most of the people who actually are able to become writers are those who are able to dedicate years of their lives to focusing mostly on writing, who maybe have the industry connections to get a book deal. They might know people in publishing. They might have family members in publishing. They might have family members in some form of academia or arts or cultural criticism that gives them the connections to get the editors or the agents or whatever it is they need interested in their work. And I think, what that ends up giving us are, I think, very narrow views of the social world. I think that's where we get so many literary fiction books where the main characters are writers. And I'm just like, is that really the only world you can imagine? like, there are other jobs than writer or academic. That's a job that I see represented a lot in literary fiction. And then the narrowness of that worldview really comes out, where it's these people clearly know no life apart from being a writer. They don't exist within a real world. They haven't had to deal with any kind of material concerns for the most part. Somehow they're just all making a living and having their fraught little, age gap relationships. Power imbalances abound in these books. And yet, it does kind of lead to, I will say again, a boring experience of reading. And then though, anyone who's not from this privileged academic cultural elite background often, I think, can only enter the literary space based on an identity characteristic that is of interest to the elites. And so what then happens, I think, for, maybe the working class writer with an identity that gets the elites interested in them is that they then have to just keep writing about that issue, whatever identity-based marginalization they have. They have to write about that over and over and over again. I think whether they want to or not, because it's well, write about it or don't publish at all, probably. I don't know. I'm not in that position either, but I did spend time in the academic world, and I can tell you, I think that definitely happens. I think it definitely happens. And I can only imagine that it happens in the world of book publishing as well. So, but I don't want to come off too harshly on my fellow writers. I don't want to come off too harshly even on the publishing professionals, on the book editors, on whatever other people work in the publishing industry. I don't know. You can tell I've never actually published a book because I don't know who works for a publisher, but I can imagine though that a lot of the decisions that bind writers and publishing professionals are, of course, the financial risk aversions of the very rich people who own the publishing houses and probably don't actually care that much about literature. I mean, based at least on what I've gleaned about the elite classes, I don't think they actually care about the arts. I don't know. I think they care about other stuff, but I don't think they're really concerned with the quality of books that are put out. I think they are more concerned with, let's say making money. I think they're more concerned with making money. And the best way, maybe, that you would learn to make money in business school would be to work from a tried and tested framework. That probably then puts pressure on the people who are commissioning the books, who are editing the books, to tell certain stories in certain ways that have already been tested as market winners. And then that leads to a lot of the same types of books being put out, which also probably does contribute to the boringness of this fiction. Maybe if I'd heard some of these stories one time, I would have been interested, but now that I've heard them, 5, 6, 7 times, I'm okay, let's move on to a different type of story. I'm ready for something new, and yet I don't receive that. I want to love reading again, and I will say that it's true. Over the past several years, I have loved reading a lot less, except when I'm reading the classics again and stuff, or older books, because but I want to read about my world. I want to read about the world I inhabit and not have it just be some pretentious I don't know, story of a woman's interiority. Or I also, you know what I also don't want are these like super edgy, like regressive internet novels. I don't want either one. Of course, we're all living in the capitalist hellscape of the neoliberal world order, and we don't have a lot of say in what gets put in front of us media wise. But what do we do about it? Like, honestly, I know like the first part of this video was very much me complaining about stuff, because of course that's what you do online, is it not? You just come on and complain. But no, also like I do spend a lot of time thinking about solutions to these issues, and then I think of myself. And as I mentioned, I am writing a book, and I'm writing a book very much like as a response to many of the criticisms that I have about books these days. When I set off to write my book, it was with the stipulation to myself that I would pour a lot of emotion into it, that I would not fall prey to the flat character issue, that I would create a rich setting and context that positions the characters in a world. And so you're interested both in the characters, I hope, for who they are and what their experiences are, but you're also interested in the characters through their interactions within a vivid context, within a vivid place, within a historical position in the history of society. And so I hope that, we're pulling on different emotional lines here to make it an interesting story. But I mean, I don't know, who knows? I'm still in the editing process, and like I haven't read it all the way through by myself in quite some time. I am just like right now like deep in like line edits, and I'm like, oh my god, does the whole story stand up, or am I gonna have to like go back and rewrite again? I don't know. I don't know, but I know that I want to put out something of quality. But I think that like this is not really like just me coming on here to be like, I'm going to write the best book and this is the only book you're ever going to need for the rest of your life. Absolutely not. I don't want it to just be an exercise in vanity that I'm going to like put out a book, because also like the point of me writing a book was never to be like just a vanity project, to be like, oh, look at me, I have the perfect image of the writer. No, like I wanted to do it because I wanted to connect and I wanted to share like an emotional experience, and I wanted to put my own feelings on the page, because like I get a lot of pleasure out of doing that. Like, just as much fun as it is to like read and feel something, it's almost more fun to like write and feel something and be like, oh my god, or to be like, ooh, did I just go there? Yeah, I did. I mean, it's like the best experience to do that, to have that feeling. And so I think in having this experience, I wanted not, though, just for it to be a vanity project, but I wanted it to be a project of connection. And I wanted to put something out there, but I also wanted very much to contribute, I hope, to maybe an alternative publishing infrastructure, to contribute to a different way of publishing books. Now, I don't know exactly where we go from here, but I think like a big part of it is to identify the issues that people are having with the reading experience right now. I think that's why I've watched these conversations about why are books disappointing these days with like such interest, not just because I'm like, oh, how does my book fit into this schema, but because it's like, oh, like, wait, like other people feel the same way as me. Like other people feel like these books they're reading are just like not quite emotionally hitting the mark. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, let's think about then what needs to go into books so that we can produce better books. And if it comes down to like people need to like set up their own like publishing collectives or something to like actually find and like vet and distribute the books that they actually want to see, I'm like, that would be the most exciting thing in the world. One thing that keeps sticking with me is we live in this weird time of intense social fragmentation and loneliness, and people feeling disconnected from their own emotions and the emotions of others. And I think if there's one thing that we can do is we can put out better books, because there is no better way to connect with your emotional experience, in my experience anyway, than by reading a book that helps you tap into some universal of human experience. And I think in this time when a lot is shifting and technologies are changing and we don't really know the future parameters of the society we are going to live in, like, we need to have better books. We need to have books that are bringing forth feeling. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I am trying. I'm trying.